Okay, folks, for everybody that's on right now, I'm started to record, so let me now share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to Code for Miami, our open hack night. Happy to have you here. This is your first time using Teams, there's a chat bot, a chat service here, and you can kind of like see conversations. So if you have any questions, you can like drop a question there. I'm sure Livio or somebody on the team would be happy to help. So this is our first virtual hack night, and today we're going to be exploring COVID-19 projects, as well as I'm going to be giving you some updates on where we currently are with existing Code for Miami projects. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to just give you like a quick briefing of like where we're at, and if you have any questions, feel free to voice it. This is like a public conversation. We're also going to look at some existing repos to see if you want to participate. So let's get this started. Okay. So if you haven't yet, I recommend that you go to codeformiami.com/volunteer to support and be a volunteer if you aren't already. Second to that, I suggest that you look at our GitHub to see kind of like open project ideas and issues if you're interested in it, and seeing like existing projects within the network. We are part of Code for America as a strategic partner, even though we're nonprofit based here in Miami. So yeah, check those things out. Second thing, I just want to start with the icebreaker to get kind of understand who's in the room, if there's any new people, if there's any veteran members in the room, just kind of like a quick moment. This is called Icebreaker. So my name is Gregory Johnson. I help lead Code for Miami Inc. We operate here in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and I'm really excited about leveraging data to work on building new digital services for the local community. So that's how we kind of get it started. Anybody else want to kind of talk about who they are?
I'll go first if you like. My name is Allison Riley. I've learned full stack web development on an online immersive. I'm finishing it up actually, about to graduate. I've been a server in a restaurant forever, so now I'm unemployed. That's really exciting. Not really, I'm joking. I learned Ruby, Rails, JavaScript, and React and Redux in the program. So I'm hoping to contribute to open source projects so that I can at least start building something looking like experience and get hopefully a job to replace my restaurant job.
Got it. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Greg. It's Jafar. I know we met what was it, about 2 weeks ago at the Venture Cafe Miami. But as a formal introduction, everyone, my name is Jafar Campbell. I am a network engineer, so I'm kind of not in the whole coding thing yet. I do know HTML and CSS, and I am currently studying. Well, I actually just finished studying a PhD course, so I'm getting pretty familiar with that and MySQL as well. But we'll be taking on JavaScript and REST API and things like that. And just trying to contribute. I like helping people, so just want to contribute to the cause and obviously build a portfolio, of course, but kind of just stay active in the community and help, engage fellow coders and things like that. So nice to meet you all and have you all here.
Thank you, Jafar. Cool skill set. Cool skill set.
Appreciate that, man.
Hi guys, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So my name is Richard. I'm new and I'm a product designer. So I deal with the user side and the people, empathy, and grab all that information, research, and turn that into a product or an interface that that we can use to help out. I do know a little bit of React, just enough to get by. Not very good at it. But yeah, I've helped done a lot of community service in my past, and anytime that I can help out, it usually pays off like in multiples. So anytime you help anybody, it works out. So that's just me.
Welcome.
I can go next. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Michelle Clay. I'm also new. This is my second meeting. I just moved to Miami, and my skill set is mostly in backend engineering and just working on the AWS cloud. And yeah, I'm just looking to see where I can help.
Got it. Well, welcome.
Welcome to Miami.
Okay, then. If we have anybody else.
If there's anybody else, I can also introduce myself before I go. Going once. Anybody else? Do we have any more people? I know we have a few more people in the chat, but.
Yes, I just signed in. Can anybody hear me?
My name is Luis Vargas.
Hey, Luis.
Yeah, I'm Luis Vargas. I'm software developer. I have been software developer like 6 years ago. I'm doing mostly Java and JavaScript. I'm mostly doing Angular for working. I'm here to help if it's needed.
Okay. Well, welcome. Livio, do you want to do an intro so I can start diving into some of the COVID stuff?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, if you still haven't introduced yourself, put a 1 in the chat. Or just go ahead before I do my intro, because I'm.
I just want to know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, hear you loud and clear.
All right. My name is Radames. This is my first meeting. This is very new for me. I'm from Venezuela, but meetings over here have been a little bit hard to come by, so I decided to stop by and maybe learn a little bit from you guys. I'm a web developer. I work mostly with React. Happy to learn new technologies, and yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, Miss. I too am from Venezuela.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you got anybody else? Or I think we got most people in here.
Yeah, I think we got most people in here.
Okay, I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Livio. I am the other captain here at Code for Miami. Aside from very much in support of the Code for Miami mission to build public interest technology and technology for good. I'm very interested in how technology can tell stories about who we are, what we do, and how it solves our problems and how it changes just a general human landscape. So that's me. I do mostly WordPress. I'm a freelancer. I also teach other people how to be freelancers. If you have any questions about WordPress or freelancing, I'm an open door. So feel free to email me, call me, or Slack me.
Thanks, Livio. So thanks. So I'm going to just dive into this. So if you haven't been to Code for Miami, essentially what we are is we're a civic technology nonprofit, which has this mission of transforming government and nonprofits and the way they work. And the way we do that is through open data. So in times like this where COVID and pandemics rise, we're kind of the people that say, hey, there's a lot of data that needs to be shown to people. And we kind of live on the edge of let's show truthful things that can actually help and make impacts for people and organizations as well as community. And we typically work with government on various projects in the community to build digital services typically. It could be a prototype, that's typically our thing. But we also do user testing and user research and compile all that information to build open source projects, which we kind of give to our partners as a way for them to establish ways of serving their end users in different ways. So we're very much focused on that. Today, it's going to be a little different. Typically, we jump into the projects that we have. I'm going to jump into some of the things that we're working on that's in our GitHub and some of the emerging dates that we're going to be doing. But I'm also going to talk about COVID-19 and talk to you guys a little about the stuff that's happening internationally, because we are a part of a national network of people doing things in different cities, but we also are part of an international scope called Code for All, which has like a ton of projects in Pakistan and Italy and everywhere that you can think about where this is kind of like a serious problem in terms of numbers. We're just going to look at some lightweight issues or things that if you guys are interested in, you can take on. The way we work typically is we partner with universities, nonprofits, and organizations to prioritize like kind of our flagship projects. And we're an open platform for people in the community to work on their own projects. And we can definitely help you and support you and giving you any resources so you can build your own thing. We don't take ideas. Anything that you work on is your own, but it is in the public sphere. So we leverage GitHub and a bunch of like open source tools to kind of operate to build prototypes and tools. So if you're new to coding or if you've been in this for a long time, this is the place to be if you want to do things for what we call public interest and for the public good. So now I've gotten to that. Let's explore COVID-19 open source projects. So you guys, there's a bunch of COVID news and we're all working from home. And if you're a technologist, have been doing this for a long time, working remotely is kind of something that we've had the privilege of doing. But there's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people getting laid off. There's a lot of people struggling to make ends meet. There's a lot of families that have kids that they don't have childcare for them and they don't have food at home. And in times like this, rather than building tools that kind of like scale up misinformation, what we look at is what can we do to make sure that information and the right tools are given to the right people to help them. So that's kind of like what we're going to be looking at today. So in the first box, I want to share Florida Department of Health has released a COVID dashboard. And if you're in Miami-Dade County and want to see the counties, you can essentially like see how many cases that we have. I don't think the data is open as yet, but I do know you can probably like break it down into a list format. You can like see Miami-Dade County, which has 101 cases. And it really breaks down the data. It also shows areas for testing and who tested specifically. I don't think it's areas for testing, just areas of who tested, who's positive, who's negative. And it also gives a little glimpse of what's happening around the world. So if you guys haven't checked it out, I think it's a pretty cool tool. Second to that, I wanted to also show you Bing.com. If you haven't seen it, they've also released a COVID dashboard. In this dashboard, it's a little bit more robust in terms of features. So you can see the highest cases and you can also kind of like zoom into different places like whatever country that you may be interested in. Like, let's say we're in the United States right now. Let me zoom in on Florida. And with this, you can also see active cases as well as fatal cases. But one thing I found interesting about their tool is they also find local news that are reporting about it, credible news sources, and then post it on the right side here. So you can kind of go down and kind of get information about who's reporting it, which I think is kind of a useful feature. So these are organizations not associated with us that are doing and working on projects, but I also wanted to show you what some of the organizations within our network are doing. So in Philly, under the Code for Philly brand, what they built was essentially a COVID hospital impact model for epidemics. So I'm gonna click on the site right now, which they just made in production. So essentially, this helps hospitals, and this is by Penn Medicine and somebody that's in a part of their local brigade. You can essentially toggle how many patients are in a hospital for COVID, and you can like put your inputs, and you get essentially a chart of admission rates, admitted patients, and this is essentially a tool to help the doctors that are associated with like looking at population health, like do their job better, and it's been getting a lot of news and traction. This code is also available And if you're willing and like interested in it, I can definitely Slack you and or put it in this message of like how you can kind of take this open source repository and deploy it for whatever project that you're working on. So this is one way that civic hacking can be used to help groups. And I really think about it from the partnership angle. I think this is built on, it's built on Python, and they're using Pandas and Node. So if you're interested in this type of project, this is one that's been in the network that's gotten a lot of positive news. Second to that, what I wanted to share with you is New York. So a group of civic hackers in New York decided to get together through the civic tech organization there called Beta NYC. And what they did is they built a map of available Wi-Fi in the New York borough area. And with this map, they linked it to a tool called ArcGIS. And essentially, you can see all the areas that are providing Wi-Fi. And you can put in your location and you can kind of like view a map area. But the approach that they went to is, as this pandemic grows, accessibility for low-income and at-risk people that don't have Wi-Fi is going to be really important. So they created a tool to kind of support that. And this, if you want to look at it yourself, it's on wi-fi.beta.nyc. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely take a look at it. So now we've talked about some projects that are up. I also wanted to share with you some resources and challenges that are up right now and happening in the network. So right now we have something called a status board for brigades and organizations within Code for America. And on this board, you can see all the projects. And if you need the URL for this is statusboard.brigade.cloud, and I can share it with you later. But essentially what this is doing right now is you can see all the projects being worked on within the network. So for Miami, we have 64 repositories. They're pulling from GitHub. 3 have topics. In Fort Lauderdale, we have 17 projects. But then you can see what other brigades are doing. In Code for Orlando, they have 71 repositories with 31 specific topics. So this is a useful tool if you're just trying to understand what other people are doing. And if you code Python or if you know Ruby really well, you could probably find something that's associated with it. They've also flagged COVID-19 projects. So if you're working on a COVID-19 project, you can add that as a topic or tag within any of your existing projects in the Code for Miami GitHub. And it'll essentially appear here if you want to get more people interested in it. So I just said a bunch of things. Is there any questions before I go into like our projects about COVID and like ideas that you guys are brewing up that you want to work on that you just kind of want to share and see if you can get some resources to like work on? Okay, so I'll take the silence as no. So I'm just gonna jump into what projects we're working on and ways that you guys can support if you're interested. So right now we have 4 primary projects that we're working on. And the top one right now is people budget. So right now for the city of Miami, if you go onto the miamigov.com website, what they have is a bunch of PDF formats of the budget that they release annually. And one of the things the budget director has approached us to do is essentially say, hey, can we create an online way for residents anywhere so they don't have to come to my like outreach meetings in person to understand how to work with the budget. So this is called the participatory budget, where not only are they getting kind of like engaged with how the budget works, but they also get to participate in ideas. For April 1st, for this participatory budget, we have a code check-in. This is a team of about 6 or 7 people with 1 lead that are constantly working on it and making pushes every, I think, Friday. And if you're interested in this project, you can go to GitHub and go to Code for Miami and like learn more. But we see this is going to be an important project as because of COVID, the budget director won't be able to do his outreach in person. So releasing this is going to be really helpful for the audiences that are interested in learning more about their budget that can't make it there. And this is going to be the first virtual or online mechanism for the city of Miami ever to do this. So this is a reason why one of these projects are very important. Second to this is the Transit GTFS project. This is a transit API for the city where we're working on some documentations around essentially the existing vendor that the city works with, as well as the county. And we're working on fleshing it out into its own API and helping the city understand how they can like spin up their own API, as well as how they can navigate the craziness that is the kind of vendor and the API documentation that they currently have. Third to that is Badge Watch, which is a public safety aggregator, which is also April 1st is the code check-in for that project. And then we have a new project starting off next week on March 25th called Civic User Testing. What we're going to be doing is we're looking for facilitators are on the product design side or research side that are interested in participating in regular users virtually navigate setting up on the city's what they call eStart program, which is around building permits. So this is helping businesses that are looking to get building permits do it in a virtual way. And because of the time, it may not be as relevant, but it's also very important. We know a lot of businesses right now are going through some hard times. So looking over their permits or getting it renewed may be on the top of their mind as they kind of go through this. So these are some projects that we have going and also that we have a lot of support on. So if you're interested in it, please Slack me, message us, look at the GitHub, make a pull request for Transit GTFS and the Badge Watch project. I know the last commit is kind of old for it, but they're working on a separate repo, and we're going to be essentially try to merge those two branches, and so it's just one main one, and that'll probably be done on the first of next month. So COVID-19, I want to touch back on some of the projects that we're working on. Maybe you guys are going to be interested in as we kind of scope it out more. These are expected to have requirements by next week. And essentially, we're looking at two ways or mechanisms of supporting residents here in Miami. One is what we've noticed is because of the amount of incidents being reported for COVID-19, there isn't a lot of tracking locally right now or any data source for finding how many people are getting laid off. So I know one person was very brave enough to share kind of like their story of like the restaurant industry kind of like laying them off. But how do we track
Hello,
this?
this is Greg.
Did somebody say something? Okay. So how do we track these people that are laid off, and essentially how do we give them an alternative resource? So Livio, he went through WinCode, and he's a graduate of that, and now he's running his own business, and he's making a lot of like headway as somebody that's come out of a boot camp. But how can we share that like pathway to people that are now laid off and they're looking for ways to make money and get new skills so they can be more have an income source that's reliable in this? So essentially, we're looking to deploy a website around this. We're looking for as much support as we can and kind of getting inputs and then make these inputs locally from Miami-Dade County. And we're going to probably make some of this open source, but the goal here is more visibility and connecting some of these people to our resources, especially because we're the largest civic tech organization in South Florida with about 4,000 members. So there's a lot of resources that we have, and I really want to make sure that this is a number that we can kind of track. And I think it's something that's low-hanging fruit, but as well as high impact if we can get it right. So that's one project we're exploring. Does anybody have any like thoughts or questions about like a layoff tracker? This is really high level, so I'm always interested in like what you guys as technologists or like people just interested in civic work think.
I like that project idea, and I guess I don't know. I only have a first few initial thoughts on it, and that I know a lot of people obviously that it happened to. I'm the restaurant person, just in case. I don't know if it identifies who's speaking, but my first thoughts were I don't know. Maybe I could get like some of their thoughts on what's happened and what they would like to see in a website. That would be maybe a good first layout idea. And my other first thought was I have heard some rumors that Amazon is going to be hiring restaurant industry people in particular, and others, of course, but they know that that's a major one. And I did have a small rumor from an inside reliable source that Walmart is probably going to do the same thing, like hire workers temporarily. So I don't know, maybe just look into more companies as well that are going to be. I mean, of course, looking into alternative education options would be a really good one. But I was thinking, I don't know, that's just my first initial thought as far as like technology could be used and how it's going to work and how it's going to flow. That I'd probably have to think more on that. But I don't know, just as a first maybe content thought. I don't know, hopefully that's a helpful.
That's super helpful. Anybody else have thoughts?
Yeah. So I've also heard a lot of people, and like today I went to the place I normally cut my hair, and I asked, like, oh, why'd you guys have to change my schedule around? And it's because they have to close down for the next 2 weeks. So there's a lot of different businesses, not just restaurant businesses, but a lot of people that are just working on the hourly that are being affected by this, and they have no other. They can't go to their employer and say, those hours that I usually have every week, is there a way I can get something from that? So I think helping to collect that data so that some sort of decision can be made, or some sort of a solution, I would definitely like to be involved in something like that.
Got it. Okay. So we have two people interested. I'm excited. And before I get to the next thought, like, how do you guys feel about does the input look like for that? Do you guys feel like a form that captures, hey, what's your like where you live? Like, I'm always trying to understand, like, what do you guys think would be like a comfortable amount of data? And I know it's still like subjected to testing and getting assumptions right, but I also want to make it not that we're like trying to capture data on a specific person, but just get data on specific, how it's impacting the local economy.
So I have an idea. I could hit the field and start asking people on like a qualitative level, like an interview kind of thing, where I could just find out, just a normal conversation, what are some things that are impacting people. And if I start seeing after 5 or 10 interviews that certain things are coming up, we could then survey and see what kind of significance, though, what kind of data we can get from that on like a qualitative level. Quantitative level. Sorry, I'll stop there. So, for example, just like you said, instead of it being the story of 1 or 2 people, see if we can get a broad spectrum of different experiences, and then see if these experiences, how large is the population or sample that is actually affected in that same particular way.
Cool. That sounds good. So tomorrow I'm going to be releasing like some documentation around this. It seems you have developer interest, designer interest, and you can also definitely do some civic user testing around it. If you drop me your name in the message or right now, I can follow up with you guys and like share more information about it and see how we can collectively like work on this, because I do think the research piece of this is going to be important. And outside of just reskilling people, leveraging our relationships with employers that I do know are always hungry to look for talent, whether it be the bigger employers or like smaller, I think it's going to be a really good thing. And I know from my perspective, and I work at Microsoft, so my division definitely cares about Miami-Dade County, and we also invest a lot in like retraining, reskilling, looking at the future of employment. So it's definitely going to be an interest of mine to see how we can like help these resources capture these numbers and get data, more importantly, and then see how we can like. So thanks for the feedback, guys. Second project that I want to mention was support for tax preparation. And I'm going to switch my screen because I've been on this slide for a minute. And I'm going to go to our web part that we're working with. And if you guys haven't checked it out, it's called getyourrefund.org. And essentially, this is the first what we call virtual intake form for helping people fully go through the process of looking up their tax return. And we know a lot of people right now, because of COVID-19, they don't want to go in person to like get their tax work done. So what we're working with is with Code for America, which is deployed in several different cities across the nation. And hopefully with some of the partners that are leveraging this tool to say, hey, let's make sure that there's a better way for volunteers to get engaged as well as people to get involved in it. And we're going to do some user testing as well as like do some actual onboarding of clients. if you're interested, you can kind of check out this tool. If you're interested in this project specifically, you can sign up as a volunteer and let me know that, hey, I want to work on this project when you get an email that tells you if you're approved. But yeah, it's a real simple interface. I just played around with it earlier today. It actually asks you how you're thinking about doing your tax work. This is the same experience that if you're using. You can find local sites, or you can start doing your taxes online. And it just asks you a couple bit of information about yourself, like, do you earn money on a rental property, or have you earned money from a farm? And essentially, the pathway it takes you from a development standpoint is, if you put the top two, they'll probably say you probably don't qualify. But more probably need you to saying we're not sure if you qualify for the service. So it weeds out in the beginning who the end user is or the target audience. And once you're in there, you have to use ID.me to do verification, because this is a service that has been verified by the IRS. You have to provide information about your like ID or driver's license. But once you get through this, you can actually like fill out your tax information, and instead of like going to somebody, get your taxes filed online. So they've just released this week. So it's fresh off the press. And this is a new tool that we're one of the kind of brigades kind of leading actually this with some of the local partners. So we're looking for people that are interested in like supporting this and getting on board. This will probably start in the next week or two, but it's going to be another high impact project and one that you can do remotely if you don't have a lot of time. Awesome. Okay. So before I get into something else, is there any questions related to any of these projects? I know 2 people have shown like interest in maybe working on this, but is there anybody else that have thoughts?
Hey, Gregory, this is Greg Bloom. I'm sorry I came on late, but I heard you talking a little bit, although you were also breaking up a little bit, about the tax prep project. I know that the United Way, I didn't catch whether you're partnering with them. I know that they've done a lot of work on this. Was that part of the partnership that you're describing?
So we're working with Code for America and the Citi group, the bank, to do this. And we're working to get it locally here where we can actually establish like getting like actual staff on the ground. And right now I'm trying to see if we can actually get funds to actually get people like compensated for their time if they're volunteering for this, even if it's just a couple of hours. So yeah, that's where we're at.
So I think the United Way of Miami-Dade County has been doing a project. They've developed a tax filing assistant tool, and they have staff and programs across different organizations. I have no idea what the status of it is currently, but I know that Harris Levine from the local group Kertwang has been developing some web products with them. So it'd be worth potentially checking in and seeing what's already happening in the community.
Yeah, definitely happy to connect with them. I know, so Catalyst and another group in Broward is actually using this tool. And like, we're just trying to find like the best way to deploy something that's reliable and secure. So if you think it's worth pursuing that conversation, happy to do it. I know you like work within kind of like this with Open 211, and I can't wait to hear more about like some of the stuff that you're going with stuff, but I think that's definitely a conversation worth exploring.
Cool, yeah, we can just connect the dots and see if there's any alignment.
Got it. All right, so I want to be mindful of your time. Right now, I'm going to dive into some of the inner works of some of the projects we're working on, and then I'm going to leave the last couple minutes for Greg Bloom to talk about some of the stuff that he's working on, and then we're going to do a Q&A. And again, guys, we're a tech group, so everything is done on GitHub. If you have questions related to pull requests, issues, please get there. That I will see notification, or Livio or somebody on our 6 staff team will see. So, and we're always happy to help if through Slack message or email, so we're available. So let's talk about the first one of the projects that we're working on actively. So the general transit feed specification with Microsoft is a project that we're working on with a bunch of FIU students and the UPE group. One of the things we noticed is how can we make sure more transit data is placed online that is static and in real time, especially because right now the city of Miami and the county are using a vendor that doesn't have a clean API documentation of how do we collect data on transit and how do we make sure that the routes are always updated? So when people are looking through their phone, through Google, or alternatively through the city's transit app, they have the proper information. So right now what we've been through is we've had some delays in the beginning of it from not getting kind of like accurate information of where the project was. We had insufficient data, and then we had some optimization issues because of like insufficient RAM on Heroku, which we were spinning this up on. Heroku is a cloud service. So one of the things that we've looked through is like combating these hurdles. One of the things we did was like get more space in terms of pricing so we could deploy it on Heroku. We then, I then did some digging up and found enough research so that in terms of data, so the students could work on this. And now the repo is up with a lot of this documentation in the wiki, as well as within the repository. So we kind of like hit those challenges. They have also built API and a backend and front end, which are now connected to show routes based on an area. And next up is to fix up the front end piece and work on the UI and UX a little bit and add some navigation, and then make the app a little bit more user friendly. Second project is Badge Watch. This is a public safety aggregator. Essentially, this is a social justice reform application that's looking to pull online information through social media, whether it's Twitter or local news or YouTube, and then facilitate that at the local level to show people what's happening with police interactions or what's happening with crime in a certain area. And it's powered by the people, so we can vet it and validate. What we've gotten with this project is they've actually built out a roadmap. They've built a system diagram, and one of the group of volunteers actually made a facial recognition tool that identifies his face. And after feeding it some photos, it was able to like get his name and get his age and look at that as a way to kind of identify people out in the field that are associated with specific police departments. So issues with this project was parsing data and then connecting it to the database, and then writing a backend that the mobile app could work on. From some of these challenges, the way that we kind of hit these was we worked with the student group to help them kind of understand of different methods of like setting up a database, especially on Azure. That way they can connect both the front end and back end and do it in a simple way so that the deployments were like coming through. And essentially we were also giving them some support on that. So if you're interested in this project and wanting to learn kind of more about Azure, this is up for like grabs, but we're also moving fast on this. So April 1st, we're doing a code check-in, and then on April 9th, we're going to be doing a demo day of like where they are with the project. And it's all going to be open source if you want to take this and kind of like retrofit it to your existing project. Yeah. So those are the current projects. There's the last one, but I'm going to leave that for another day. And I want to kind of like save this time. Greg, I know you're on the call. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work that you're doing? Greg Bloom.
Hi there. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's good to hear all the things happening out there. By way of introduction for folks I haven't met, I've been a Code for Miami member for 5 or 6 years. I work with brigades across the country. I lead the Open Referral Initiative, and Miami's 211 hotline is one of our main partners in that. I don't have much of an update with regards to 211 or that project, although, you know, to give you all a sense of how that could be useful, we have a database of all the health, human, and social services that 211 keeps track of, available in an open API. I wouldn't necessarily say like, let's start building on it now, because I assume a lot of those services are closing and the hours are shifting, and it's not entirely clear to me how that information will be updated. And it's a non-trivial challenge that is not really something we can hack on. But I will try to find more and report back in the future. Gregory invited me to come on and talk specifically about a different branch of work that I've been doing with other organizers who have engaged in response to crisis of various kinds, although most of them were hurricanes. So building on the experiences we had during Hurricane Irma, I facilitated dialogues with other organizers who'd worked in Hurricanes Maria Harvey, Katrina, Superstorm Sandy, and others who had experience with like wildfire and floods and stuff. And so we compared our experiences and talked about like what should happen, among people who want to help during a crisis. All of those crises were very different, to say the least, from this moment, right? Like we haven't experienced anything like this moment. We don't necessarily like know what the right thing to do is, but I do think that those principles that we discussed are probably broadly applicable in some ways. And they might need to be adapted to this context or that. But the idea is what we wanted to do was come out with a shared set of agreements about like how people who want to help during times like this, how they should sort of agree to work together and what it is that they generally should agree to do. And so we can pull these up. Gregory, I don't have screen share, so I'm on the phone. I don't know if you have these up because I shared the link in the Slack. In the general channel of the Slack for Code for Miami, I shared this a little bit ago. Sorry, I'm not plugged in properly now. But we have a couple of documents in various formats where you can look through these principles. They're pretty simple, but they have some more elaborate explanation. Like the first principle is ask. Ask people who are experiencing crisis. Like that's just like the first step. And then listen to what they're saying and sort of repeat that process, which is actually not something that I find to be a common practice in civic hacker spaces like this. Sometimes it's something people remember, but a lot of times it's just like, well, what's a problem that we can solve without necessarily asking people who are experiencing that problem first. And the second principle was share power. And I don't think I need to go through every one of them unless people are interested in talking through. But I would hope that this could be useful, and I would really welcome feedback from folks about how it could be more useful as a framework for thinking about like what's worth our time, and also are there things that maybe we shouldn't do? Because that was the recurring theme from years of dialogue with people across all of these different disaster sites, was that in retrospect, a lot of the things that were done were maybe not only not useful, but some of them were potentially harmful. And we're seeing that actually. I think Jen Palka from Code for America pointed out an example of this principle in action today on Twitter, and I was really grateful for it. She pointed out that like it makes sense at first to think about let's build a map of all the sites where people can get coronavirus tests, right? Like if you can get that data, you can put it on a map and make it easier for people to find, and like that makes sense at a first thought. But Jen pointed out that like a lot of that data about where those tests are available might be coming from places that are not really automatically updated, and those locations might not have tests available by the time people who use an app and get the information and go to the site get there. So just getting the data and putting it in a nice interface and sending it out in front of people isn't necessarily better than doing nothing. It might even be worse. So that's an example of the kinds of dilemmas that are going to come up in this moment when people want to help. We hope that these principles can guide people in thinking through really carefully, like what is it that should be done, as opposed to what is it that we could do. And I'll give you another example, just in general. Collecting people's information of any kind is something you could do, and it's often something you shouldn't do at all. Even if you're like, oh, we want to collect a minimal amount, like maybe not. And so it's not to say you should never, but generally speaking, when it comes to people in crisis, we want to be careful that the things that we do don't put them in greater danger. Like Gregory, I heard you talking about badge watch, and I couldn't tell whether that's facial recognition for police, like as in like, help me recognize this police officer and get data about him. Like that sounds like a really interesting app. But it might have actually been about like helping police recognize who people are, with an app and get data on them, which sounds potentially like something that could put people maybe unintentionally in a grave amount of danger. So these principles, I hope, can guide folks in the process of thinking through, like, you know, from all the range of things that people might come up with in brainstorming and so on. And as people go through with projects and they have to come across like tough calls, like these principles hopefully can be helpful in thinking through the way forward. So that's all. I mean, there's plenty more I can say, but I will try to keep it at that, and happy to take questions now or later.
Thank you, Greg. Livio, we're kind of opening it up right now. It's for questions and answers. If you have any interest in projects, let us know via chat, or if you're not in the Slack, let me know, follow up. The projects that I mentioned are going to be continue going. And like Greg Bloom mentioned, badge watch, we looked at all of those things as well. And we're not saying, hey, let's track people, because that could potentially be very harmful. We're looking at, okay, how can we use this as a tool to empower people? So I think it's all a part of like making sure that technology is built more ethically. And that's also a principle of like what we do as we work with governments to better design tools and leverage data for the technical services that they give to their users and constituents. So right now it's question and answer.
I have a question. This is Michelle Clay. I have a question regarding the GTFS project. Who are the groups working on this project right now?
Hey, Michelle. So the groups working on this is an FIU CS student group. They're about 6 or 7. Essentially, what they're doing is building an API for this data, but all the data is already there and the documentation is there. What is your exact question outside of that? Is it like, how can you work with them, or can you do your own thing?
Well, what I was wondering was one of the issues was that the route data provided by the vendor was not consistent, right? Or up to date. So I'm wondering who's working on that, or if that's being worked on by the vendor itself, or what's the status on that?
Yeah, so that's the student group took a route of like just working with the data that already exists and building a route. But for missing route data, that's actually a need. I think it's in one of the issues. If you want to work on that, send me I have your name in the system already. I could put an issue and tag you with it, and I can send you an email so you can get in touch with the city's analyst on behalf of Code for Miami, because we don't have anybody kind of like leading this outside of the student group, and I think getting somebody on the ground floor would be really helpful.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll Slack you.
Any other questions?
Well, if there's no more questions, again, COVID response, we're going to be doing tax preparation stuff. You can expect that in a week or two. Me and Livio or somebody on the team will make an announcement for the layoff tracker. That's going to be up tomorrow. We can see some of the requirements. We can actually spin that up really quickly. And yeah, we need user testers, we need designers. If you're new to development and you've just had an experience where you've been in that experience where it's like, hey, I don't have a job, I have to find it. We're looking for all those type of stories, because I think it's going to be really helpful in the next couple of months to kind of figure out how do we support these type of people. So yeah, thank you for your time. This call is being recorded, so it will be up on our YouTube, and you can like go back to it if you have any questions. And yeah, we're really just diving down. Thank you for all the people that have been patient. I know there's quite an uptick in Code for Miami volunteers. I think like 30 or 50 people have been signing up, and we do look through all of the emails, and we do look at like your background and make sure that the people that are in this community contributing are the people that actually care, and not people that are trying to sell something, or people just trying to like get other people in whatever the program they're doing. So we're very like intentful about that. So we look through it all, and we're going to just keep sending out messages and getting you in the pipeline. And we're working on actively for this nonprofit group to make sure that we have enough resources to make sure that you guys are getting the best skills and the best experiences, and also leveraging your time to do things that are really, really meaningful to you. So thank you guys. All right. right. So unless Livio has anything else, I'm about to end the call. So.
No, that's pretty much it. I'm just very grateful that for our first hack night we had, we broke 10 participants, so that's fantastic. I think that's pretty good. So as we're going through this transition, it'll be fantastic. For those who are already interested in working with more projects, of course, spread the word about what we're doing. Get other technologists involved, and also remember, this is not just for people who know technology. It's really, it's really for everyone. We're contributing to the common good for everybody, and just let everyone else know about our work. That's another way to really help.
And if you're looking for jobs, I know some people are like just getting into coding and programming. Most of the people that contribute to projects and get something on their resume within the next 3 or 4 months, like end up leveraging this experience to kind of like get their foot in the door at some of these companies, because there's a lot of civic tech organizations coming up. So if you're looking for work and have worked on a project, I can definitely point you to some resources for like finding available jobs. Yeah, we're definitely down to also like me and Livio if you need a recommendation. All the only requirement is that you've had to work on something. We can't give a recommendation without like experience or source to pull from. But yeah, we're definitely happy to do that if you need that.
Thank you for having the virtual meeting.
No problem. Have a good one, guys.
Right. Okay, still on here.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID followed by pound. Your Please enter a conference ID followed by pound. You are now joining the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
Hello.